Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night breakdown. Daniel Routledge and Dave Forrester with you to break down all the action in the British Basketball League this week. And we are the full disclosure twins, I think. There is no curtain. We're like the Wizard of Oz without the curtain. So we will tell you that it's currently Saturday afternoon. But what we're going to do now is we're going to break down all the other games, and then we're going to save the excitement of the cup final for the end of the show, i.e. after it's been played. So we only have to do this in a shorter version come Sunday night. Right, so there's that bit. That's also why we'll probably be both dressed slightly different. I'll be a bit smarter, and you'll probably take the tie off by that point, won't you?
Yeah, I'm going to put the pajamas on.
Let's go back to Wednesday night and start with the trophy quarter-final between the Plymouth City Patriots and the Cheshire Phoenix, which Cheshire won by 11, 77-88. Dixon back for the Phoenix after his injury of a few weeks ago. They were a little slow out the blocks, I thought. Cheshire, Hassan going to work inside. Patriots got out to a nice early lead.
Yeah, it's still a bit of a trip down there on a Wednesday night, I think, from Cheshire to Plymouth. It doesn't necessarily surprise me. I was watching this game for a while, and then I was trying to work out what was going on in it. And you always have to try. It's difficult when you do this show kind of week after week, and you just pick the games come very, very fast. But you always have to try and kind of maintain a narrative to the season as well. And, you know, the last game between Plymouth and Cheshire was a few weeks back in Cheshire.
Yeah.
And Plymouth weren't very happy.
No, they weren't.
They were invited to play a game when they had some COVID issues, and they, I think, had 4 maybe senior players and 3 other registered players. And rather than doing what I think is probably the most sensible thing, which is, to be blunt, sucking it up, sticking it in your memory banks, and being ready for when you play them again, they complained out loudly on social media, and it wasn't as much the club, but certainly the people around the club, and certainly a couple of the players. And that then has a reverse impact. That has an impact on Cheshire, because Cheshire are saying, "Oh, you're complaining because you think you can't beat us. We can't beat you when we've got a full team." And because there was a lot on it, because there was kind of a lot of emotion in this game early on, I thought Cheshire, if anything, were a little bit tight early. But then when the second quarter came, suddenly, you know, Mockford got going, and suddenly there's lots of high fives, there's lots of punch in the air, and, you know, it was a little bit more than kind of a Wednesday night game in Plymouth. And so I think there was some kind of that kind of feedback as a result of what happened on the last occasion. I think there was, it doesn't always carry over the players, but, you know, my impression was that there was an extra kind of bump in the Cheshire mindset in relation to this game. I'm quite sure Coach Thomas will have mentioned it to them in the locker room.
I'm sure
they had forgotten. So that's kind of the background to it all, and it is kind of important that when we kind of analyse games of BBL, you look at the season-long narrative is just as important sometimes as just who makes plays in each game. But you're right. I mean, look, Rashad Hassan is playing like he never stopped. You know, he is. You know, he gets a basketball, he scores. He's, you know, 11 to 15, 12 to 16. You know, 10 to 15 or whatever every game. And Plymouth clearly have, having been crying out for that type of player early on in the season, are clearly happy to throw him the basketball and then go to work. They also have Antonio Williams as well, who is obviously giving them a punch up front. And yeah, I thought their energy was good, but I thought when Cheshire's bench came in, the game changed a little bit. And unfortunately, when Plymouth's bench came in, it basically submerged the team.
Yeah.
The big run in the game was in the second quarter.
Yeah, Bradley and Austin got them in front 19-13, and then, as you say, in the second quarter there was a flurry of Mockford threes, and Bradley hit one as well. It was 17-2, and it was 46-23, 3 minutes from halftime, and really that was the end of the game.
Yeah, and it really was, because it never really got kind of much closer. And then, you know, you always end up looking at the stats and trying to figure out if there's anything in the stats which makes a difference. And you look at, you know, Ben Mockford is shooting like he is. You know, we've talked about Ben Mockford a lot, because he is a player who has a direct impact on winning and losing. You know, if he plays well, they have every chance of beating anybody. Now, I say plays well if you make shots, because those shots are going up. In relation to Plymouth, they're probably the same with Kofi Joseph. You know, if Kofi Joseph makes shots, they're going to be in the game against anybody. Well, in this game, Mockford was what 6 of 9 and
5 of 8.
5 of 8 from 3.
Yeah.
And Joseph's was, I think, 1 of 11 overall.
1 of 11 overall, yeah.
And those guys are kind of bellwethers for their team. And the reality was, in that period, in the second quarter, particularly when Plymouth have their bench in the game, they are relying, if Joseph's is coming off the bench, they're relying on him to score. And if he has one of his nights where he's not on, it becomes very difficult for them, to generate offense. And because he's going to shoot the ball, you can only shoot the ball. There's only so many shots in a game. And certain guys, when they're on court, are going to put them up because that is what they are good at. So it was a big, a coaching strategy. It was a massive coaching strategy. You look at the guys who are going to put up volume shots in limited minutes in games, who are going to get their shots up. And you think we have to hold those guys down. If we hold those guys down, we've got a chance because not many other guys are shooting when they're in the game. And Cheshire, Plymouth didn't hold down Ben Mockford, who of course is an ex-Plymouth player. And Cheshire didn't hold down Kofi Josephs. Cheshire did hold down Kofi Josephs. And at that point, game 40, 20-point game, basically a 20-point game throughout. Cheshire in a good place because they have their rotations are set, and you can see that has a massive impact on everybody. So they're getting good minutes out. Everybody's due their minutes. There's nobody clogging it up. And that's why the Dickerson injury helped. And now they're going to bring Dickerson back, which gives him a bit of extra punch for when Ocherobia gets into foul trouble and that type of thing. And it kind of fits him very well. But yeah, I thought it struck me a bit of a chip on the shoulder game for Cheshire, this one. As I watched it longer and longer, and the jumping around and the shoulder barging and all the kind of bumping into each other and all that stuff. I think they were ready for this game.
They certainly certainly put out an interesting tweet, an amusing tweet after the game.
Is that right? I didn't see that, and so I'm afraid I've come quiet to that. But yeah.
They are the 11 points was actually the closest margin in the second half, the final score. So they will go through to face the winner of Thames Valley. This is the other reason we have to declare our situation, because we don't know the result of Thames Valley Hemel yet, but we will by the end of the show. So Glasgow and Thames Valley or Hemel will play in the other quarterfinal, and they will play Cheshire in the semi-final. Hassan was 11 of 13 in this game for 22 points. That's 22 very efficient points. And Williams with 21 points. They were 0 of 12 from the 3-point line, Plymouth. 12 is not very many threes in the modern day.
No, it's not.
But to go over is pretty unusual. It's only the second time in the last 7 years that a team did not make a 3-pointer in the game. The other one was Manchester against Bristol in December 2020.
I didn't spot that. That's a hell of a start. And and they do have guys who can shoot. Joe Hart, Kofi Josephs, LVC Dusha, even Williams.
I think I was more surprised by the 12 than the
12. But that it may be that Cheshire do have a solid perimeter defending group. Cal Carey has long wingspan. Austin is always up on you. He's right in the passing lanes. He's right in the lane. So he's not going to stand back off you. Okrafor is a very solid defender in relation to being where he should be. And what Plymouth don't really have is bigs who are going to let the ball go. They're playing Edekunle, Hassan, those guys, they're not going to step out. So they're not going to space the courted fours on the guards to make shots. And, as I say, Cheshire's perimeter defense, I think, isn't bad.
Mockford 5 of 8 for 17 points. Austin's 16, 7 and 6 steals as well. They were 13 of 25 from 3. Just shows the contrast in the game.
You can't win, can you? No.
39 points to 0 from the 3-point line. So let's go to the other game on Wednesday night in the FIBA Europe Cup. London Lions 61, Bahcesehir College 76. So the Lions are now mathematically out of qualification. They've obviously still got 2 games to play. Dirk coming off the bench in this game. Teague and Reese starting. They were slow out the blocks, London. They were 10 points down after 8 minutes, but only scored 8 points in the first 8 minutes.
Yeah. And actually, Williams has been very much a first quarter player for them in Europe. You know, if you watch their games back, there's been regular occasions whereby he's gone off in the first quarter maybe because he's been open, he's been making a ton of shots, but also because of maybe the attention that teams are playing to the other guys. The interesting thing for me was starting kind of a little bit bigger with Washburn at the 3. Obviously, it's new head coach, so you have to see how those rotations are going to pan out. They don't have Jordan Williams still, and Jordan's been the main British kind of contributor over the European campaign. But I was a little bit surprised at taking Dirk out. I get that, you know, having said that, I've kind of lobbied for Teague to be starting. So, you know, throughout, but that doesn't mean Dirk can't play the 3. Now, you give up a lot of sides if Dirk plays the 3, but not many teams run offenses anymore where 3s go down in the post and post you up. You know, they don't, you know, it's generally teams are running what they're going to run and guys are going to go where they're going to go. So there's, I think if, you know, the logic is always if they're going to do something they don't normally do to take advantage of a mismatch that they think they have, well, that might screw them up more than it screws us up. But it didn't work, to be honest. It didn't work because they couldn't score. And, you know, Teague is there, but obviously he's only there for the European games. He's not played that much. You know, they're 0-3. You know, the reality is that the likelihood is they're not going to qualify. And he wasn't on in this game at all, from what I could see. I thought the Turks were probably the best drilled team we've seen in London, play in London as of yet, with the size that they had, but also with their attention to transition defense. You know, that is, it's still, whatever we talk, is a talented offensive London team, and you hold them 61.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, that means you've got a next level defensive team, and nothing came easy. The transition defense from the Turkish team was excellent, and they controlled the game.
Well, I was supposed to be doing Eurocup on Wednesday night, but snow in the Mediterranean, bizarrely, meant Venice couldn't fly to where were they going? Bursa. So I didn't.
That'd be ice in Venice, wouldn't it?
But it seemed okay in Venice. It was literally the storms on the way, apparently.
All right.
So I was able to watch both of these games live, and I had them obviously on the double screen. And by the time London started, the sort of jeopardy had gone out of the Plymouth Cheshire game, and actually there wasn't much jeopardy in this either. They never got away. It was always sort of 7 to about 14 points, but it never really felt like
it felt
London
like a
had a
cat playing with a mouse.
Yeah.
It felt like a cat playing with a mouse. And you know, and this is, you know, where we get to, you know, we talk about next levels all the time and that type of thing, and the next level budgets and next level players. You know, the reality is that we had one British player play about 3 minutes, and that was Justin Robinson in this game. It was a London team which is basically out of the G League, and they got as far. I think they got as far as what they have in their squad probably entitles them to get to. There's a real discussion as to how they go forward to next year. You know, are they going to go and double down and find even better Americans? Are they ambitious enough to do that? Are they going to try and build a culture with the kind of the same guys leading the team and try and just add value on the outside? But if they're going to add value on the outside, the reality is that's going to involve most likely bringing in the highest level British players. Are they willing to do that? Are they willing to go and get Ovi Soko back or Miles Heston or players like that to come back and kind of carry the flag, and are they willing to fork out enough basically to do that? I don't know. But they've kind of reached their ceiling. They've hit their glass ceiling at the moment. There was an interesting vignette in this game, I thought, at the end when London made that little run at the end, and Reece made the 3 in the corner, and kind of held the pose a little bit after he made the 3 in the corner, right in front of the Turkish bench. And I think it was Smith came down the other end, you know, and it was like, you know. And basically he drilled one and then made another move, and suddenly it's a 14-point game. And all that, you know, and it was like, look, you guys, you know, you might think you're in this game, but you're not in this game. You know, you might think you can kind of, you know, hold the pose, 3 minutes to go, have a look around, you know, this game's done. And I thought that was a real nice vignette in relation to how the highest level European players can just flick that switch, which is don't mind me.
Yeah,
Don't mind me. Don't mind me. I'm just going to, it's the type of thing that would happen in the NBA, and then everything you see them afterwards and all that stuff. I just thought it was really, it really kind of cast a shadow on the differences in the teams. So yeah, London got 2 more games in Europe, and just to see what they do with Teague and Majauskas. I assume they're going to stay there to play them, but I wouldn't expect to get much out of Teague, well, certainly Teague in those 2 games, because there's no jeopardy in them. And I imagine he'll be looking to his next contract, because his contract will be up. Because he's not playing anywhere else. And there's a real question as to where London go. I'll be interested to see where they do go in relation to their recruitment in future, because they've done a good job of recruiting this year. They've held the league up in a good light. They played competitive games against good teams. Their performance in Saratov was incredible. But they've reached the apex of where they're going to get to. And ultimately, that's the second round of the 4th best European competition. So how much investment are they willing to plug in to try and get to the knockout rounds of the 4th best European competition, or even to the 3rd best European competition?
Because I mean, the reality is, I don't know the precise budget of Bahcesehir, but it'll be in the millions of euros for sure.
Of course.
And I would have thought it's probably closer to 10 than 0 millions. So because Jamar Smith is a really, really good, amazingly good at that level player. I've done him for the last 5-6 years in Eurocup, and he's one of the better players in that competition. So he doesn't come cheap. Savash won't come cheap. It's an expensive roster, and if you're going to compete with that, you're going to need players of that caliber.
And just so people understand, the reality is, and this is a best guess, so I don't have any inside information at all, but you're talking in the millions there. The reality is that the Lions are spending somewhere between £500,000 and maybe £750,000 on this team. That's quote marks their budget. And I say that just knowing what the BBL budgets are, have an idea of what's around the league, and also knowing, that the reality is that the Teague's not playing in the BBL because he wouldn't be under the salary cap, and they'll be paying him extra. He'd be being paid as an ex-European player. And I'm not giving away. I'm not, as I say, there's no secret in that. That's a guess. So if anybody says no, you're totally wrong for us, that's fine. I don't know. But that's the kind of differentiation that we're playing with. When you throw in all the travel that London have to pay for and all the steps they've taken, probably closer to £1 million. But you're still not in the ballpark of what you're dealing with in where you're at the moment, and even in the back end and you're not in that ballpark. So we know that now. We know London's not generating £1 million. I think we can be pretty sure about that. Haven't sold a shirt this year. The operation off the court is not running at the same pace as their operation on the court. So it does come into that question as to how much are we going to invest in order to see if there's a return, and is that and so it's a really fascinating direction.
And to give it some scale, because we talk about European budgets and whatever. The ambition, presumably, is to get to EuroLeague. That's kind of what they say. If you get into EuroLeague, you're going to need at least 10 million to finish last.
I think there's probably more revenue associated with EuroLeague as well.
There is, but you've still got
a massive deficit. There's still a massive deficit. And to be blunt, EuroLeague don't want a team coming in to finish last every year. That's not the point of EuroLeague. The point of EuroLeague is that we have 24. I think it's 24. 18 behemoths of European basketball who are all going to knock blocks off each other, and they're going to basically fight each other to climb over each other to get to the top and spend tons of money and increase broadcasting revenues around Europe to the point whereby everybody gets more money.
And I actually did a EuroLeague game last night, and the team in last place was close enough to the team in third place that it was a ball game. It was a bit defensive, but it was close, and that's the point. And the reality is, if you want to be competitive, you're probably going to need to spend 15 million euros, and that's on the team as opposed to on the overall budget. There's probably another 5 million in terms of
And people and there is a harking back to the old days of Kingston at Crystal Palace and all that stuff. and it's different. You know,
Yeah, they weren't. Yeah, the reality is when Kingston beat CSKA Moscow and got into the last four, CSKA Moscow didn't have a 30 million euro budget, and it was pre-Barcelona, so European basketball wasn't where it is now. So that's
no, absolutely, it was a entirely different situation. It was
and
a
it was
situation
pre-Bosman as well, so it
yeah,
was 10 Russians.
So because of the lack of resources and the lack of freedom of movement of players, it actually leveled the playing field. Or, you know, any team in any country which was able to hoover up the best indigenous players. You know, if you had the 8 best British players and you had two superb Americans, you're going to be able to compete because that's what you're competing against.
Yeah.
The other countries, it's not the same now. It's not close to being the same now. There's far too much money involved, far too much TV involved, far too much development gone on in all those other countries in relation to broadcast rights and broadcast TV rights. And obviously the football clubs in some of those other countries as well have really taken basketball to heart to the point whereby they're in an arms race as well, because it's their second sport and it's not our second sport. It's our 5th or 6th sport. So we're just competing on a different playing field. So well done to London for doing what they've accomplished. It's good. It's I'm afraid basically worthless if they don't continue, at least at the same level, you know, because, you know, it's like putting a foot into a bucket of water. You're going to take your foot out of the bucket of water is still going to be there. In Europe, and no one's going to be a little ripple, but that ripple's gone. And, you know, and next year, everybody's forgotten about that ripple. So I don't know what the coefficient status is in European basketball like it is in football, but if there's any kind of points that the UK can get, etc., in developing its club teams, then they need to keep going. They need to find a way of other teams joining them.
Let's move on or stay the same. Let's go to Plymouth against London on Friday night in the BBL, and that finished Plymouth City Patriots 94, London Lions 101. Lions jumped out to a 9-2 start, and then I just thought they were a bit loose in that. Whether they you know, they started well and they thought, oh, we're gonna cruise this, but they didn't factor on Williams and Hassan because they really took advantage of that. Patriots played well in the first quarter.
Yeah, well, the last game they beat them by 30 or 40, I think, down there. Kajini had about 30, about 5, you know, whatever. I think you're being generous when you say they were loose. I thought they were cocky. I thought they were borderline disrespectful to the opposition in the first quarter. The first player of the game, Reece got a layup like no one was there. Second player of the game, I think it was somebody got a dunk. I can't remember. It was 4-0. Then you went up to 9-2. But I didn't think they guarded. They didn't. You know, they weren't guarding Plymouth with any degree of intensity. Almost like they knew that they were going to beat this team by 20 or 30. And Plymouth have scorers now. There's a difference. And any team in the BBL now can score. There's 10 teams. Every single one of them can score. There is no easy out in relation to turning up, not playing defense, and having some just rolling over a team. And you know, there was a couple of times, certainly, I think on one occasion, James Vere pulled Reece probably quite early in the game, maybe the 3-minute mark. I can't remember the play that he pulled him out after, but I remember noticing why he did it. If that makes any sense. And I think it took Justin Robinson to actually come in and give them a little bit of grounding, and Will Neighbour to give them a little bit of grounding, actually for them to start competing in this game. Because but the problem is when you start competing at the beginning in the middle of the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, the other team's in a row. Too late. You know, you're in the game now. You're gonna have to fight it out. And what they got was, as you say, Williams was absolutely outstanding in the first quarter, had about 15 points, something of that nature, but scored in every which way. And Hassan's obviously going to get his touches and going to get his scores. And I think that's right. It was the first 2 plays of the game. Kelly basically dominated inside, and they couldn't get a shot off. And so basically, the big guys back there swatting shots or dominating. They couldn't hit the rim. They're making layups at the other end. It's easy. And then suddenly it became less easy because suddenly Hassan, they got the measure of it. They started making some shots. And then Kofi came in, and Kofi was the opposite of what Kofi was on Wednesday.
Yeah. It was pretty much up and down, really. You score, we score. There wasn't much in it. The key bit of the game as far as deciding the outcome came with 3 minutes to go in the third quarter. I thought it was 67, 67, and then Lions closed out the quarter 12-3, got the first score of the fourth quarter as well, and they're suddenly 10 points up with 9.5 minutes to go.
Well, the other thing was, early on, Lions were getting threes, but they were missing them. And in the second, we've talked about it before, if you get threes and you're missing them, you're going to stop making them. And their shooters are too good. And Plymouth kind of got a little bit carried away with the scoring race, with the fact that they were scoring. And London are a very difficult team to guard at BBL level, but you can't let them make 19 threes. You just can't let them make 19 threes. And you say, well, how do you stop them? Well, you prioritize other shots, and you might have to allow them something else. But virtually all the threes that they shot were good looks. They were catch and shoot threes. They were threes for shooters. Reese, Cugini, Robinson, Washburn with his feet set, Neighbour, and you just felt, and obviously Dirk, who shoots a three, I think with the least energy or effort I've ever seen. And it's so rhythmically simple. It's shot. It's like shooting it.
It looks like it's going in every time, doesn't it?
And it looks like it is going in most of the time.
It looks like it's going to the bottom of the net as well every time.
Yeah, and it's not. No, it's absolutely not a criticism. It's actually it's actually praise to say. But it does it with such rhythmical ease. It's the wrist, and and it's just like this guy isn't missing, and you got all those guys, all those players, and you have to take some threes away from them, and they didn't. And the reason that they separated themselves, I think around that period of time, I think Robinson made a three, Cugini made a three, and you can't trade threes for twos, not with with anybody, let alone with London. Now London's defense remained pretty shaky. I thought their individual commitment to some players were more locked into the game than other players. Probably those who felt defeated in Plymouth before. But I'm thinking back to the playoff quarterfinals when they won the league. Justin Robinson was there as well. Those games have an impact on you, and it's like, I've been through this before. I'm not letting this happen again. And Plymouth came back and Kofi made some more shots, and London's defense, as I say, I thought it was summarized by the play, I think, with about 2 minutes to go, where they ran a little screen roll on the strong side and threw it into Hassan on the short roll, and he just kicked it out to the corner, the opposite corner, and Kofi stood there on his own. And they've all rotated in. And Kofi's like stood there in the corner on his own, and Shard hits him, and it's a wide open three. And you're thinking, well, we're not giving that shot. We're up by 8 with 2 minutes, 9 by 2 minutes to go. How can you possibly give that shot up? If you're locked into defense, how you're locked into the opposition. You know who the scouting is. The guys already scored 24 on you. How can you give that shot up? So I think they kind of they kind of got away with it due to their offense. London, they never thought they were going to lose the game. They might be right. Maybe they never were going to lose the game. But it didn't really bode well for them.
No,
going on the road against other teams as well.
Yeah.
Because maybe they need to get some wins to understand that they're in with a shot of winning the league, because maybe they don't understand that. Maybe for a lot of these guys, Reese, Kelly, possibly Cugini, Washburn. I don't think those guys have ever played in a league competition. I don't think that, insofar as most of their basketball has been stateside. I'm not sure. I can't say they haven't played in some European, but I don't, in the stateside, you don't play in league competitions, you play in conferences, and you have the playoffs at the end. And the different mentality when you're playing in a league competition, because you can't afford to lose games. And maybe the kind of the significance of kind of the quote marks a regular season isn't quite where it is in their own mind. And they're thinking playoffs because that's what Americans generally do. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah. So just to put some numbers around what you've just described, Hassan got it back to 77-81, and then Cugini and Williams hit a couple of threes, and then Kofi got it back to 88-91, and then Williams and Washburn hit some threes, and that was the thing. It was the threes that kept them going. So Kofi finished 9 of 15 on the back of his 1 for 11 in the previous game for 27 points. Hassan 24 points. And 10 rebounds, and Williams 24 points, 6 and 6. Reese had 22 points, 13 assists. Dirk Williams was 5
minutes.
Williams was 5 of 7 for 3. Cugini, Washburn, and Reese were all 4 of 9 for 3, as Lions were 19 of 42.
Those 19 shots we made by 4 shooters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kelly had 10 points, 12 rebounds, and 6 blocked shots. Interestingly, we always talk about points in the paint. Patriots won that 48-32, but when you give up 19 threes, it doesn't matter, does it?
Kelly had 6 block shots. He probably changed another 6.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
There's actually a little refereeing corner point here. I don't know, I'm just going to invent refereeing corner now, given that we had a positive reaction to last week's refereeing.
Yeah.
There was an interesting call with 2 minutes to go in this game, and I'm not sure if it was right or not, and so I'm not going to go and put myself forward as an authority. But Reese was in the far corner as we look at it, with the shot clock running down. And he kind of threw the ball up at the basket. It didn't hit the rim. Kelly went over the back on a foul on the rebound. Now, London throw alley-oops for fun ordinarily, right? And the rotation on the ball looked like Reese was shooting it, but I don't know if it was or not. Now, the refs called a non-team possession foul. I think on the basis that they assumed that Reese's effort was a shot, as opposed to a pass.
Yeah.
But the ball hadn't hit the rim, right? So, and Kelly came over the back, as it were, almost on an alley-oop. And so I'm going to ask anybody who knows more about it than me, whether or not, because if it's a pass, obviously it's a team possession foul.
It's an offensive foul,
Offensive foul. And therefore there's no 2 foul shots.
Yeah.
And the refs talked about it, and they went down and they gave him 2 foul shots.
Yeah.
If it'd been an offensive rebound, it would definitely have been 2 foul shots.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that it was.
When I watched that, I thought what they were talking about was, did the 24-second violation, because the ref on the far side went violation, and the ref on the near side called a foul. So I thought they were just having a discussion as to whether the shot clock had expired before the foul had been committed, because I thought it was a shot, was my take.
Yeah, but who makes that determination? This is what I'm interested in, because obviously a shot, in order to affect the shot clock, it's not on the referee's discretion anymore. It used to be. So when I was growing up, if a referee judged that a player attempted a shot, whether the ball hit the rim or not, the shot clock would reset. I'm sure you remember those days.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
That's not the same anymore. Now the ball has to hit the rim.
Yeah.
So the ball doesn't hit the rim, but the refs have adjudged that control has gone away from it to be. And I think I would have erred on the other side of that. If I was right, but I might be entirely and utterly wrong. Yeah. So those who know more than I, or even you, please give me the rationale for that, and when the referee is allowed to determine that call. I'm interested. We'll see. Sorry.
We'll see if we get a response for that. All right, let's move to. There was a couple of calls actually in this game as well that I was like, oh, that's.
Yes, I know. I am. I know which ones you're talking about too.
The Surrey Scorchers 80, Cheshire Phoenix 85. So Cheshire 2 good wins in a couple of days. Surrey still struggling. Robertson was real fired up at the beginning of the game, wasn't he? He was blocking shots, he was dunking. Stanley was being Stanley, and we were getting the good Stanley, and they started really well. Sorry, 14.
Well, they started with Jules playing as well. I think Jules Danakodo started, and I think he does help them starting. I'm not sure if he'd started previous games or not. I'd have to check. But he can, and you're right. Look, Robertson is a really intriguing player, because he's a force of nature type of player. There are not many of him around. No. He is a genuine 6'11", you would say. I don't know if he's, everyone who's 7 foot says a 7 foot is genuinely 6'11". But he is big. He is big all round. He's in proportion. He is athletic. He is not without a touch, and he is not particularly leaden-footed. Right, and they're the first things you look at in the BBL. Or do any of those things apply? Because if you're 6'11" and any of those things do apply, then you're probably not going to be playable. If you're leaden-footed, or if you haven't got a touch, or you can't finish, or whatever, then you're probably not going to get on the court much, because you're going to be run off the court by the smaller guys. If those things do apply, then hell, you've got a player, because you've got something that other teams don't necessarily have, which allows you to kind of adapt game plans around the guy that you've got. And most of the season, he's been in the first category, and the latter part of the season. He's been in the second category.
Mm.
And you're right. In this game, the noticeable thing was just how ready he was at both ends of the court. It kind of gives them a difficulty as a team because him and Jameson kind of duplicate a little bit. Jameson's just a bit smaller, and neither of them are particularly comfortable, kind of more than 10 feet away from the rim. But any coach is going to like having a 6'11", 7-foot guy blocking shots, protecting the rim, and finishing at the other end. So he's an intriguing guy because I don't know how we would have done in a more stable, cohesive unit this year. And for various reasons, Surrey haven't had that. And sometimes you've got to take the player out of kind of the chaos to find out what kind of player the player really is, if that makes sense. So you're right. He started on fire. Cheshire started like they had a bit of a hangover from Wednesday, to be honest. That they quite enjoyed, kind of shutting up the Plymouth Twitter mob, and that there's a good night out, no doubt, between Plymouth and Surrey, and they didn't quite look locked in that early, missed a few shots, and the only guy I thought who was ready to play from the very beginning was Ocherobia, and who as I was watching this, I thought is a very close second actually to Thomas Edwards as the most improved player, because I thought he was excellent at both ends, and did really well. So
so with Surrey, you always know at some point they're going to give it all away. And it took about a minute and a half for Knicks to go from 10 down to tied. And then in the second quarter, Teddy made a couple of threes, and suddenly they're out to an 8-point lead. And then by just before halftime, it's a 13-point lead. It just sort of all evaporated for Surrey.
Yeah, it was Surrey's offense really evaporated. Then the new American, I think, made a three, but then he missed a couple. Kaelin is kind of stuck between the point guard and the shooting guard position. I was watching a little bit of the Plymouth game as well whilst this was going on, but it just seemed that they got stuck in the mud. And Cheshire actually warmed into the game, and Cheshire are more set in the rotations, and that really makes a difference. Cheshire's bench is now set. They know they've got Carey coming off the bench. They know they've got Austin, and they know how each other are playing. Surrey still figuring that out. They've only had a couple of games, and you lose these games in the 5 to 7 minutes when your rotations aren't quite right, when the group on court isn't quite finding a way of getting it done, and you've got a new guy in there who's playing his second game. You've then got different people filling different spots, and you're right, that it happened very quickly, and it's happened a lot with Surrey, whereby they have lapses in the first half of games, get behind, and then rely on individual stuff to kind of get them back in it as the players play with more urgency in the second half.
Well, in the second half, Naaman Wright pushed it out to a 17-point lead, and then Cheshire got themselves in all sorts of foul trouble. Bradley, I thought, was a bit of a needless, unsportsmanlike foul. I didn't think he really needed to commit that, particularly on 3 fouls. So he picked up his 4th, and then a couple of minutes later, Dickerson picked up his 4th, and then Ocherobia picked up his 4th, and they were still 10 points up at that point, but they were in massive foul trouble with their bigs, and you thought this has opened the door really to.
Bradley, Ocherobia, they're all a bit handsy in the way that they defend Ocherobia, and certainly Dickerson. They're all a bit handsy. They reach in and they don't possibly defend with as much. So maybe I would probably say Bradley and Dickerson more, not Ocherobia, but they're also right in the middle of lots of screen and roll action. You've got quicker guys coming at them, and they're all relatively big guys for the BBL. But it does impact them. But they have that rotation. I mean, to be blunt, you can get away with one of those 3 guys on the court for periods of time. So you only need really one on the court. If you can have Bradley playing with a big, it's better. I don't think Dickerson or Ocherobia works together. But if you have Bradley playing with one of them, that works as well. But, with the guards that they have, Okafor, Mockford, Austin, Wright, Carey, it's easy, perfectly feasible that you can slip Carey or Wright up to the 4 spot if you need to, and play Bradley as the centre, and then stretch the opposition out, which is actually what kind of happened near the end. So I think if you're Ben Thomas, you prefer them playing aggressively and picking up fouls and playing and saving them. It's always the dumb ones.
Yeah. Well, I thought Bradley's was the dumbest of the three of them. And then into the fourth quarter, Kalen hits a 3-pointer. Micah Chirobia then fouls out, and Kalen makes a couple of free throws, and they've got it down to a point. They've got the momentum. The crowd is up, and you think, here's a chance here. But then Austin drive to the basket and one, and it's out to 6 points. And then Thomas commits an unsportsmanlike foul, which I wonder whether that was new to European rules, sort of unsportsmanlike. It was a sort of grab on a layup. It felt like a no layup rule type foul, which you just can't do. And then Austin's made 2 free throws, and all that good work to get back has been undone. And with 5 minutes to go, they're still 8 points down.
Yeah, and that's been their story to a certain degree. That it's not actually their offense which lets them down in big moments; it's the defense which lets them down. Because even after that run, and you don't let Austin get to the rim. That's what Leicester did so well. You can't let Austin get to the rim, and they did. But even after that run, they then came back in and made a couple of plays, and then their defense fell apart again, and they gave up a wide open 3 to Mockford off the. And Okafor was great in the fourth quarter. I don't think he made a shot, as it were, but he absolutely ran the team. He moved everybody where they needed to go, and they just went with a very simplistic offense, which was clearing out one side for him and Bradley to work the screen and roll. And at this point, Robertson's guarding Bradley, so he doesn't want to step out. So Okafor, the first time Okafor throws it, he dribbles to the right, strings it out, throws it back to Bradley, open 3, bang. Robertson hasn't got there, bang. The next time, I think the play was a little down screen for Mockford to come up from the baseline. 2 guys went under the basket. Mockford stood on the 3-point line all alone. Okafor delivers him the ball in rhythm, bang, there's another 3. Next time down, the same string out play for Bradley, dribbles to the right from the left-hand side of the court, throws it back to Bradley. This time, I think it might have been Robertson or Jameson recovers a little bit too quickly. Bradley takes the left-hand dribble, and he's passed them to the rim in 2 steps. It was the most simplistic offensive play, but Surrey utterly failed to deal with the shots. It got all the shots that they wanted to get. And that's when players knock down those shots, when they're shooting comfortable shots. And yeah, I thought Davis played better in this game. I give him credit. I thought Surrey are gradually taking small steps, but the season might just kind of finish before they get to the point whereby those steps are going to help them win games. They didn't get anything off McLemore in this game, which also is an issue, and they're going to have to stick or twist with the new guy Thomas, because he's he's American, so he's going to have to come in and really contribute quickly, because they don't have time to start, to have a 6 or 7 game integration period when you're at the end of January. But it's like the league. You look at the league. Where's your win coming from? It's not easy. Where have they got to go?
So Davis ended up with 23 points. Robertson with 21 points off 6 of 8 shooting. He was 9 of 10 from the free throw line.
Yeah, huge. The player there.
9 rebounds and 4 blocks, but there wasn't really much else from Surrey after that. They did get 19 points off turnovers. Cheshire were a bit careless at times. Bradley was 6. Bradley was 16. Austin was 16. Teddy was 4 of 7 from the 3-point line for his 12. They had 6 players in double figures, which is the comparison versus 2 scorers at the other end.
Yeah, it's how you're gonna. If you're Surrey, it's how are you going to kind of trigger all these players that you've got in the same game. So it's not a question of whose turn is it. It's a question of how can we get everybody going in the same game. And the answer is generally, in those circumstances, you've got to share the ball a bit better. You've got to make the extra pass a bit better, because the extra pass doesn't discriminate. The extra pass goes to whoever's open, and that's how people get open shots. Maybe they don't quite do enough of that, but they do have some, talented individual shot makers. It's just generally when someone's dribbled the ball twice, you've got a fair idea that it's going up.
It's going up.
If I was coaching against them, I would be, that would be really number one. Look, we're not playing these guys one-on-one. As soon as somebody dribbles the ball twice, you collapse. or even once, you're all ready to collapse.
Because
there are very few guys on that team you're going to say you can't leave because someone's going to hit them in rhythm for an open 3-point shot. The only guy I think would probably be Kaelin.
Yeah.
You would say, no, we're staying home on Kaelin. Everybody else, maybe Dangakodo, I don't know. But everybody else, you would say, look, if they're penetrating 2 dribbles inside, 1 dribble, 2 dribbles inside the key, challenge the shot, get around them. Turnovers are going to happen and then missed shots are going to happen and we're going to get out and run the other way because everybody else is going to be stood watching him thinking, why didn't he pass?
It's true.
Yeah.
Right. So by the magic of editing, 28 hours or so is going to pass in the blink of a second and we will start discussing the cup final. So let's just stop now.
Fine. Absolutely fine by me. Do you want a prediction?
Go on then. Yeah, let's do that. Before we press stop, what's your prediction?
I think London Lions will beat the Newcastle Eagles ladies.
Yeah, I might agree with that.
But I think Newcastle, I'm not against Newcastle Eagles ladies, and I think, obviously been through some difficulties, but I'll state I'll put on that. You were talking about the men's game, were you? I see.
Well, no, we'll talk about both of them.
The women's game, it's tough, isn't it? Because Newcastle have lost a few players, just changed their coach, and they're playing against a team which is a colossal.
Gained a few players as well, but that hasn't gone out yet.
No, I think
will by the time this is broadcast.
They need to, otherwise I'd be wearing a wig and point guard. Sorry, ladies. I'm not disrespecting. I'm sorry. No, but seriously, they were short of a few bodies. And London are just a team who, even when Newcastle had a full team, they beat them by 50. So it's going to be tough for the Eagles. But big stage, big crowd. Everybody plays a little bit harder. Everybody's a bit tighter. Hopefully it'll be relatively competitive. In relation to the men's game, fascinating game, isn't it? Because they've not played each other.
Yeah.
But it's I think it's a real boon for everybody watching the game that they haven't played each other. There's no familiarity.
Yeah.
Probably going to get the best versions of each other. You've got basically no cup final experience in either team. Really, not even any other than Rob.
Jamel and Connor. Jamel and Connor are both.
Jamel and Connor. And Connor's not been playing. But Jamel is probably the one who's got the cup final experience, but that's it. So that means that basically it's a toss-up in relation to who's ready for the game and who deals with the environment the best. You get half an hour to warm up, 35 minutes to warm up. That changes things. The backdrop changes things. The scoreboard and the back changes things. And can Manchester guard Leicester? That's a question, really. I think Leicester can guard Manchester, albeit Manchester will score the ball on them, but it can't be a layup line at the other end. And so, who's going to guard Mo Walker? Is it going to be Artisan or is it going to be Artisan or Clark? That's interesting, because you don't think of Clark as a banger, but he has a big body. And if there was the way you have to defend Walker, you need somebody as big as him, because his game is primarily, leveraged on his bulk. He can finish. He's relatively nimble for a guy his size, but he likes to score through people and over them, not kind of around them. So will that be Artisan or will that be Clark? Will they be able to guard Nelson Henry when he comes in the game? With their second line, there will be any minutes for Ulf or Nobaso. Will they have that job to do? How do they handle that? And the other way around, will Leicester be able to defend the Armstrong-Clark screen and roll, or the Armstrong-Clark screen? Or how will they defend that? Will they send different bodies at Clark and make him rotate it to the weak side and challenge the other shooters to make a play? That might be it. That might be the way they do it. I don't think they'll let Clark beat them. And I don't think they'll let Armstrong beat them. But we don't know because they've not played each other, so it's great. No.
But we will find out in just a few minutes' time, because we're going to talk about this game in just a few minutes' time.
And hopefully everything I've just said there will at least have some relevance to what is going to be talked about in just a few minutes' time. But yeah, if I was going to say anything, I would say, if I was planting my little time capsule in the ground for 28 hours' time, I would say, can Manchester defend the Riders inside? And can Riders keep Tyreek Armstrong out of the paint at the same time as keeping Dan Clark away from shooting open threes? And if either team accomplishes that, either of those things successfully, they've got a shot at winning. I think. Who knows? We'll
find out in a few minutes' time. We'll probably talk about the women's game first, but we'll anyway. Shut up now. We need to. This smooth edit thing's not really worked, so I'm just going to press stop. And just like that, it's Sunday night, so we can find out whether Dave was talking a load of rubbish just a few moments ago. So before we get into the final, we'll just note the fact that Thames Valley Cavaliers beat Hemel 86-78 in the trophy and qualified through. I'm assuming you've not seen any of that, Dave?
I haven't seen any of the game.
No,
I tried to get the live stats, but obviously live stats weren't.
Live stats having a mare today. All three games seem to froze. So well done to Thames Valley. We'll look at you better in the next round.
A couple of guys who play there, but yeah, it's good win for them actually.
Yeah. And then we'll mention briefly the WBBL Cup final. London Lions 87, Newcastle 47. That one going the way everybody expected it to go.
Yeah, actually, I was actually quite chuffed that it went that way, but it went that way a little bit slower than I thought it might.
Yeah.
You know, and part of that I think was that Newcastle were quite smart in playing the zone from the very beginning and challenging London to beat them with the threes, because because the 12 o'clock tip off in that gym with the depth perception that Drew was talking about, you know, you're always going to be and the nerves. There's always going to be a chance that they might get off to a slow start, and that's what happened. Until, you know, basically, if they hadn't lost track of Cassie Breen twice in the first quarter, and when she stepped in and made a couple of threes, it was a 12-8, 13-8 game. But yeah, the depth of London really incomparable, really. And I thought Newcastle stuck at it well. You know, they have basically 5 of the team who've been there all season playing, and then a few ladies who have either joined a little bit later or just come to the party now, and they stuck at it. And I thought, as a spectacle, it wasn't as bad. It sounds silly in a 40-point game. It wasn't as bad as it could have.
It does sound silly because actually you walk out there and you think, oh, Newcastle takes some credit out of that. There's not often a team gets beat by 40 and you can think that. But given the circumstances they were in,
everybody's getting beat by 40 by London. Sheffield ran them close in one game. You know, I think Sheffield ran them close in one game this season.
London were missing a couple of players then.
Yeah, even then, I don't know, Jolie wasn't playing. So, you know, it's kind of par for the course. You know, we talked about it yesterday. Back in the TARDIS, you know, about how does the league level up, to use a particularly politically charged phrase. In the current environment, which I think is probably more relevant to the BBL than it is to the general goodwill of the Conservative Party. But nevertheless, no politics. And you know, it was. I thought you guys did well. You know, obviously London's really good. And I can't really pick out. It was because they went to zone, it kind of took away Kennedy Leonard's skill set, you know, all their assists and screen and roll stuff. So it became more about the shooters. And obviously Azania is just too big and too talented inside. And, you know, and Chloe Gaynor is a good defender. I've watched quite a few of the Newcastle games this year, and Chloe's really been able to kind of hold it down in the middle quite a lot. But she gives up 2 or 3 inches to Azania. And, you know, if you're in the zone, you got defensively rebound. And it's tough, you know, it's just tough. But yeah, overall, great credit to London, who played hard to the end. They had the proper player, they had the starting 5 on to the end. And great credit to Newcastle for, as I say, not at any point dropping their heads.
Azania MVP, 9 of 9 shooting for 20 points. I think that record of field goals made without a miss will stand for many a year after that.
Yeah, it's difficult to argue against that when you're perfect, isn't it? You know, 9 of 9, probably from a total of about 12 feet.
There was one. The last one was top of the key.
I missed that one.
The last shot she took was top of the key.
Fourth quarter, I was preparing for the thing. I think
you had broccoli on the go, did you?
Yeah, the carrots on the go. Sorry.
So well done to London, first of what they hope will be 4 trophies this season. Let's move on to the BBL Cup final, and because Live Stats is gone mad, I'm going to do most of this from memory. So I'm hoping you'll help me out.
I've got the box score, and I haven't watched it back, but I did watch it as it went on. So,
yeah. So Leicester winning 83-69 to claim the first trophy of the season, and actually Manchester came out and landed the first punch in this game, got out 18-9 ahead. Oh, first of all, Darren Nelson-Henry in the starting lineup for Leicester.
Yeah, it's interesting. The logic, I'm almost certain, and I'm sure I'll be corrected by text if I'm wrong, but I'm almost certain that was a ploy in relation to Dan Clark. I think they were concerned about Mo Walker guarding Dan Clark, and actually the first few possessions of the game really demonstrated that, because you'll remember, obviously Steele made the 3 on the ball reversal to start with, but after that there were a couple of times whereby both for Armstrong and for Steele, a simple screen from Clark, and Clark rolled to the three-point line at the top, and on both times the Leicester big stepped out the way. So Darren Nelson-Henry on both times, instead of standing there where he would normally stand, which is to take away the drive, he took 2 steps towards Dan Clark because he wasn't giving up that 3, and that got them 2 layups. And then you get Dan Clark with a 3 from the corner, and you also get a 3 from the top from the behind the back pass from Armstrong as well. And at that point, Manchester are rolling, because Leicester because the other thing about the beginning of the game, I think Manchester had a really good game plan from what I could see from the beginning of the game for Gino Crandall. I think it lasted about 6 minutes. It lasted until our bench came here. But their game plan clearly at the beginning was to, Rowe called it a high hedge, but it was almost a trap on the screen and roll. Normally the big steps up on the screen and roll and then retreats back. But on this, Dan Clark was there and he was staying there, and there was 2 or 3 times, and that's not something that many teams have done, because Crandall's big. So as a guard, he's able to pass over the top. And obviously if you trap at the top in the middle, then the big's rolling down the lane to get a layup, unless somebody steps in which case the guard throws it to the corner and it's an open 3. But Manchester were able to do it because of the size of Clark, because he's a very, very large human, and therefore with his hands up he can take passing lanes away from Crandall. So for I think probably the first 2 or 3 probably more than that, probably the first 3 or 4 minutes in the game, Manchester did that. Now what Leicester then did, or I think probably what Gino orchestrated, they ran a little double action the next time down. And what I mean by that is it was a screener. So instead of Clark being in the screen and roll, Artisan was in the screen and roll, and Artisan didn't know to step up as far as Clark did. And that was the very first time Crandall got to the basket and got fouled. So it was by manipulating the lineups. They took Manchester, because not everybody's on the same page. Artisan's not the same size as Clark. It took them out. Also, Crandall at one point, I think, looked to split, but split the screen roll on one occasion as well. But to start with, Leicester were impacted by that. And the only guy who was, within any rhythm was Loving. Loving made some shots. And if Loving hadn't made those shots, and what you're talking about is 18-9, but it could have been 18-5.
Yeah.
Because they weren't getting any other looks, really, anything. They started the way I talked about 5 minutes ago or 36 hours ago, depending on where you look at. They started off by throwing the ball to Darren Nelson-Henry, which is what they normally do. They start throwing the ball low, but he was troubled by Clark's size. A couple of times he drove the baseline through the way they stole the ball, so that Leicester kind of pivoted away from that, kind of throw it inside, and it became, as I say, more kind of Crandall orientated from that point on. So Manchester get out early, and we think, we got a game on here, because they're getting to the rim. Their offense is clicking. They had about 18 points in about 6 minutes, give or take.
Yeah.
And everybody's in rhythm. But one thing I talked about last week was, how when we did the Newcastle Manchester game, was that Manchester starting 5 were really, really unified and together and impactful. Against Newcastle, they lost because their bench really gave them very little. And I was surprised. I think this is where having a first time finals coach, or second time, Lloyd's been in the final. I think Lloyd's been in the final with London City Royals. Yeah, if I'm
No.
right.
No, that was Junior Williams.
Junior Williams, beg your pardon. Thank you. So a first-time finals coach against a 20 times final coach makes a difference. And it was just the way that it played out. Now, Manchester were rolling, and my general experience from being involved in lots of finals is that if you are rolling, you put your foot on the opposition's throat and you keep it there.
Yeah.
Absolutely keep it there. And that's different for finals than it is for
normal game.
For normal games, because normal games, everyone's going to get into their rhythm. Everyone's going to be playing at a certain speed. Everyone's going to expect certain rotations to be made. But in a final, what you're seeking to do is to throw as much discomfort the way of the opposition as you can mentally. You're attempting to mentally crack the opposition, because the game goes very quickly if you're not making shots.
Yeah,
it
was interesting. It was interesting, the substitutions, because the first one he made was after about 2 or 3 minutes, which is just unusual that you see a sub that early in the game, unless somebody gets 2 fouls or something.
Yeah, I think it was Francois Lewis came in.
Yeah.
And then for Dan Clark came out at the 5-minute mark, and then Armstrong came out at the 4-minute mark.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it, and this is not Captain Hindsight, because I was thinking it at the time. I didn't tweet it, but I thought it at the time. Thought, not sure about that. You're rolling.
Yeah.
Keep your foot on the throat, keep it going, run these guys a little bit, and see, and don't allow the Riders kind of a foothold in, because the way Manchester won that game was they had to keep scoring. They couldn't win a game, and they couldn't win a game scoring 70 points against Leicester. Not a chance. If they get 85, as has been demonstrated, they've got a shot in the game. So when they got 18 points after 6 minutes, the natural thing to want to do as a coach in any basketball game, you get your bench in, get your starters a bit of rest, get everybody in the rhythm of the game, and occasionally you have that perfect game whereby everybody goes off and everybody scores. And it doesn't matter who you put in, you're rolling. Doesn't work like that in cup finals generally.
I got the sense that some of it was about trying to get, it's first time final for almost everybody apart from Jamal Will Saunders, trying to get everybody in and sort of like acclimatized into the game. But as you say, Rob was the other way, in that he left his starters out for a bit longer than he would usually do.
He did, and again, I think that's finals experience thing. You want it's a fairly hardy old cliche, but you want your talent on the court when the game is being decided. And in a final, and this isn't necessarily, it doesn't necessarily mean it's right, but my experience, and Drew was alluding to it a little bit on commentary as well. My experience is that you have to win the next possession. You have to constantly look to win the next possession. You're not looking too far down the line of the game, because there's just too many uncontrollables. You don't know how your players are going to react to the environment. You don't know if they're going to be in rhythm. You don't know if they're going to get wound up. You don't know if they're going to get a couple of bad calls. You don't know what's going to happen. You've got to be looking at winning the next possession. And I thought Manchester kind of probably overthought that. I thought Lloyd overthought that. And I get it's difficult with Dan Clark, because Dan Clark is a big human. He's 7 foot and he needs his little breaks. I get that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I had any point in time where Armstrong and Clark went on the court at the same time, and that happened a little bit. And what happened was their offense just basically spluttered. Now, there was, firstly, it spluttered at the end of the first quarter.
2 points in the last 4 minutes.
Yeah, and when Crandall actually wasn't in the game at this point, because he came out quite early as well, and kind of, but Lloyd had to bring Armstrong back in, because their offense was so poor without him. That he came back in with about a minute to go in the first quarter, and you're thinking, actually, he's lost it. You're out of your rhythm now. He's got to start all over again, because Leicester are now in their type of game. They're dragging the game back. They're playing in the half court. The speed of the game is different, and suddenly the Manchester starters who are making shots are being replaced by Manchester bench players who aren't making shots. And at the end of this game, Manchester's bench was 5 of 20. In total, 5 of the 4 guys who came off the bench, 5 of 20, and that's a big thing in a final. So the problem isn't the 5, the problem is the 20. If you're only getting 65 shots in a game, or 60 shots in a game, and your bench is shooting a third of them, and your bench isn't making them, and they're not in rhythm with it, then that becomes a big thing in a 10-point game, which is what this game was. So that was the first thing that happened. The second thing that happened, I thought, stop me if I need to, by the way, sorry, I'm waffling on.
Keep going.
The second thing that happened at the quarter break was actually a little bit before the quarter break, was the great almost unspoken factor in this game was Connor Washington.
Yeah, well, I was just about to get to that.
Yeah, it was Connor Washington, and he played all the way through, and he hasn't played for about a month. He's hardly played. He's been on the court a couple of times, but he hasn't played 23, but he's been there. And, you know, it reminded me of the finals that we had against him going back years, whereby Connor was a real point of difference because he gave Leicester another body to throw at our guards. You know, and a little bit like we had with Flannery, if you can have a vital player who's not really interested in doing anything other than stop the opposition, you know, and not take away from anything at the other end, then that gives you a massive...
He was really good.
Well, it was, but also there was a strategy. There was a strategy to it because Leicester changed their screen and roll strategy. To start with, on Armstrong, they were going just going over the screen normally and trying to cover Clark on the roll. From the second quarter onwards, they went under every screen. So basically, what that means to the listener is that instead of trying to chase him around, whenever a screen was set, the defender, and it was primarily Connor, would just step underneath the screen and wait for Tyreek Armstrong to get to that point. Now, Tyreek Armstrong is a young point guard, and he has it in his game to shoot the shot because the counteraction to people going under the screen is that you just stand there and shoot the three because there's no one that they're waiting for you in the key. But he wasn't ready for that. And he didn't look to shoot a shot. So they scored 8 points in the second quarter, and they went under every screen in that second quarter on him. He couldn't get to the rim. That means Leicester could build a wall. And because he couldn't get into the paint, the kickouts aren't there. And because the lineups Manchester are playing with have got guys who aren't firing and are still putting up shots. So, you know, Will Saunders, Jordan Whelan in the first half couldn't make anything. And they missed a couple of looks in transition as well. For Lewis as well, you know, had some open threes on the perimeter, couldn't make anything because they've got no offense. You know, they haven't got anything off the dribble from those guys, and they're not getting Armstrong in there. So it was actually a strategy thing. As much it was Connor's defense was great because Connor was in there just locked in on just defending, but he was defending as per the team plan, and that was a critical point because when Manchester couldn't score, as commented, you know, their half court defense began to struggle, and the gaps started to show, and they weren't able to maintain that kind of pressure they had on Crandall when he came back in the second quarter. And
Crandall, who knew? Bright lights, Gino turns up. I mean, what a surprise that was. He
had an interesting game. I don't think he had his best game. But he had against. But he had an impactful game. And those two things, I'm not saying not having his best game. I'm saying that's necessarily criticism in the environment.
Even he, in the post-match interview, when he was, Drew read out his stats, and the first thing he said is, "I need to work on my free throws," because
the free throw, that's fine. But I was more interested in the fact that, you know, Gino shot 21 shots in this game. No other Leicester player was in double figures. Right? Gino had 5 assists and 5 turnovers. Right? And shot 11 foul shots as well, right? So that's an incredible usage. He's used about half the possessions. That's about 36 possessions that he's used. Now, that's not the way Leicester generally play, you know, and it's not the way that he generally plays. And but it's a way, and it meant that he was always going to be the MVP if Leicester won because he used so many possessions in that way. But that doesn't mean it's wrong because you want, you know, as I said, it's just what I just said, you know, your talent has to have the ball, right? You know, who are you going to put the ball, whose hands are you going to put the ball into if you want to win the game? Now, the reality of this game was he went on a little run. He picked the moment kind of in the middle of the second quarter when Manchester were wobbling to turn the screw, but he turned the screw not with all his kind of highlight reel of fancy down dribbling behind his back, which generally ended up in a shot missing or a complaint to the ref that I was fouled, but just by being his smartness in relation to getting to his spot and shooting the ball. You know, all the baskets he made would be, you know, 2 dribbles, get to his spot, rise up and shoot it. Go back in the post, get to your spot, rise up and shoot it. So actually, it was the efficient stuff that the coaches like, which impacted him, and the kind of the fancy dribbling, which the cameras like, didn't really help, you know, in this game. And that's why. But what he does, and what you know is very, very impressive about him, probably separates him from, you know, the vast majority, and probably going back years as well, is that he is so tuned in the game to everything that is going on. You know, you even hear it on the commentary at the end. I mean, you know, when he's doing his mic, I mean, he's got his mic up, and it's, man, he ran into me and he knows all the refs' names and he's talking about this. You know, it's like, Steve, whatever. And it's like, and after this first foul, he ran into me. It's like, gee, you know, you leaned into him and you pushed him away. You know, it's like, he knows he fouled him, but he's talking to the ref because he wants the ref to have a doubt so that he might get the next card. It's smart, you know, and he's doing it respectfully. So there's not a problem with it. And I thought that his adjustment in this game, in that second quarter, to just realizing that actually it was kind of him, because the Leicester guys didn't really have it going. No one shot threes well yet again in the final. Like teams are combined for 12 or 43 or something like that. And he realized, hang on, it's me, and I'm going to have to make some plays. And the plays that he was being given the opportunity to make were kind of for him to shoot the ball. So I don't think you're finding another game this season where he shoots 21 shots and another 5 shots he's fouled on. So he has 26 shot attempts. And nobody else on the Leicester team has 10. But it's a cup final, and you want your guy. You much prefer, and he's thinking, I'm not going down shooting 8 shots. You know, this is my team. You know, this is my stage. I'm going to shoot the ball, and that's the way you want. That's what you pay the big bucks for. That's what you want your high level players to do. So that was kind of the Crandall is. But what he did was him and Connor played the whole second quarter. So, you know, Mackenzie basically hardly played in the first half. Played 2 minutes. You know, Adekoya didn't play much, but with him and Connor in the backcourt in the second half and the second quarter, the offensive Crandall, the defensive of Washington, because Crandall wasn't having to guard Armstrong, that broke the game open. And Manchester got to that point, and I've been there, where they were a little bit like rabbit in headlights in relation to their offense. Because out of the 8 points they scored in that quarter, 2 of them was Dan Clark throwing the ball to Jamal Anderson on a fast break. Not even a fast break, just a jump. So that means, and I can't remember. I
think there were 4 free throws in it.
Might have been 4 threes. And you know, and that's the point whereby you need McKnight. Be blunt. That's where they missed their 4th American. They're an American down. The American that they're missing averaged 20 a game. Their record without him is not good. They've lost the last 2 and then this one as well. You know, and this is where the depth and the way that you play is impacted by personnel and circumstances which are out of your control. And because I think I said it when they played Newcastle, that team had become Armstrong's team. The guys on commentary alluded to it, you know, Fletch alluded to it, Drew alluded to it all the time. We're going to have to get Armstrong back in the game. Without McKnight as that extra scorer, that puts a lot of stress on Whelan, it puts a lot of stress on Steele, puts a lot of stress on, they're the only 2 who are really going to create a shot, because, you know, Hudson's going to run a play, Saunders is going to shoot the ball. If it goes in, great, but otherwise he's over 4 and he's disqualified. So he doesn't have an impact on the game. So where they're going to go for offense, you know, there's not much there without McKnight's ability to get on the ball. And what Leicester managed to do was to weaponize that. So it impacted the scoreline, and they did that in the second quarter. And at that point, as I say, Manchester's rotations hadn't been quite right, and Manchester had blown the start that they had. It kind of reminded me, we played a final against Glasgow a few years ago, and Neil Watson was playing for Glasgow, and Glasgow came out 10-0, and we were like they were up like 10-0 after about 3 minutes. And by half time, I think we were up 19. And it was because you take that first blow, you just adjust just slightly in what you're doing, and then you grind and you follow your game plan, and you grind the opponent down. And then at the end of the quarter, the dam breaks. you know, and you've down the down breaks and mentally they're run down. That Manchester, I don't care how good Manchester Leicester's defense is, and it's good. I don't think it's the best defense team they've had, but it's very good. Manchester don't score 8 points in a quarter.
No,
not that team. You know, not with that talent. So that was probably 70% Leicester. Certainly the adjustment going under the screen, which I think was pretty impressive, because it's never easy to give the guys a plan and then to change the plan almost immediately. So that was smart and impressive. But I would say probably, you know, 30 to 40% Manchester as well. It's just them, the guys, the players that they had rotating in and out, not being impactful and not knocking down the shots that they had to knock down for that team to win.
So Leicester won that quarter 30 to 8, and we're up 17, I think it was, at halftime.
Yeah, that's right.
And then Manchester turned the ball over twice in 20 seconds at the start of the third quarter.
Well, that first play, the third quarter, I thought to myself, oh my goodness, because that was just an utter mental breakdown, because obviously you can go backwards or forwards on the halfway line. And for some reason, Edward Armstrong was throwing the ball, running headlong into the back court whilst he was still in the front court, instead of waiting for him to get into the back court and just throwing him the ball. And that was brutal. You know, I was like, this is.
But even then, take the backcourt violation. Don't let Gino.
But exactly. Yeah, but it was just brutal. It was just. But players do that, and I never understood it. That was more regular than you ever think. Players will think, "Oh, I don't want to pick the ball up because the other team will get it." It's like, well, you better pick the ball because otherwise this guy's going to get a layup. You know, bizarre, and it's almost like they're in shock at having, you know, the violation being committed. And you know, I did think to myself, oh, mental disintegration. This team's gone. Point, you know, that was a sign, which was like, oh, the klaxon's ringing in your head, or klaxon doesn't ring. Kind of shut, whatever klaxon does, whatever noise it makes, and and then they actually, I think they benefited a little bit. Leicester were a bit looser. At the beginning of the third quarter because they were up, and Manchester made a few shots as well, and gradually chipped away at it. And actually, this is when the Gino thing was in full fledged at this point, because you made a comment. He shot a couple of unnecessary shots, unplanned shots, which were, you know, what you call exclamation point shots.
Transition.
Three in transition. There were a couple of others kind of behind all this stuff behind the back and turned it over a couple of times, put a little bit of over dribbling, whatever. And as I say, every good move he made in this game was off 3 dribbles or less. Every time he scored, it was off boom, 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 get to my spot, rise and score. And actually to the point again whereby I thought Rob's experience of knowing his players meant that he brought him out. He shot that shot 3 minutes ago in the third quarter, and he came out. Now, at that point, Manchester are on a run. So that's a brave thing to do. And he hasn't done that. He hasn't. There are some games this season which have been in jeopardy where Gino's played the whole third quarter and the whole fourth quarter as well. So my reading of that was that was Rob just calming him down a little bit and just refocusing him and just saying, look, you know, there's still a game here to be won, which I thought was smart. And Manchester, as I say, they subbed again, and I thought, you know, they dug themselves back. You can't dig yourself back into a game, can you? You must lift yourself back. Dig yourself into a hole. Sorry. People listening to this may kind of figured out that I'm not very keen on mixed metaphors. Sorry, too much watching Yes Minister when I was growing up. So Manchester had dragged themselves out of said hole. And again, that was the second time in the game where I thought they didn't have their foot on their throat at that point, but they had an opportunity. You know, talking 8, 9, 10 point game with Crandall off the court at the end of the third quarter. And finals aren't like any other games. You know, it is rare. You have to find your lineup, and you have to roll with that lineup, and you have to do it. You can't work on the basis that, oh, we might make shots in the end, because it never happens like that, or virtually never happens like that. I can't think of, other than the game that was alluded to regularly by you lot. I can't think of any, and I've got my own thoughts on that game. I can't think of any of any other final which has turned around in the last 5 minutes to that degree.
To be fair, the trophy final was it a year later where Joel Smith went nuts in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, but that game was never ever not close. That game was like 6-7 points the whole way.
Yeah, true.
I'm talking about a game that gets to like 10, 11, 12, 13 points. You know, the team is too comfortable. And honestly, so you have to make your runs when you're on them. And you have to, and that was again the time I thought they needed to have their talent on the court. They needed to have all their players on, and they needed to burn them out to the point whereby, you know, if you go in at the fourth quarter, if you go at the beginning of the fourth quarter down 7 or down 6, it's game on. It doesn't matter if your point guard's got a few a few more miles in his legs, or he's got 3 fouls. You know what you're waiting for. It doesn't matter. Because he's going to find that energy down the stretch when the game comes, or it's not going to be a stretch. And that's the worst thing in the world. And in this game, there wasn't a stretch. I mean, you guys desperately tried to make it sound in the commentary like there was, but there wasn't. Not starting Armstrong at the beginning of the fourth quarter, I didn't get that at all. You know, because the extra minute and a half. They don't. I think Jack Hudson made a play at the end of the third quarter, made a layup on the buzzer. Prior to that, I think he missed a layup, missed an open layup, and he was playing as to give Armstrong a little bit of rest. But it's pedal to the metal. It's eyes out. It's all those other cliches. It's the fourth quarter of a final. You're down by 10. You've got to have those guys on the court. And by the time he came back in, they're down by 14.
And
that difference is significant.
They won the third quarter by 8, Manchester. But as you say, every time they got to 9, you thought, oh, if they get the next score here, and they never quite got the next score. And then fourth quarter again, it was a similar sort of thing where Leicester would never away, but never looked like getting caught. Then Kimball McKenzie makes plays, hits a couple of threes, gets himself to the line. And
that was impressive. McKenzie was impressive because he didn't play in the first half, so he stayed ready. He played for a guy who's played a big role in all the other teams he's been in. To play basically 4 minutes of the first 30. It wouldn't be something he would be used to, but he's a gamer. I think my view of him is that he's got a bit of edge to him. He's got that little paternoster kind of. We've seen a few guys like that over the years. We've seen Bernardini like that. We've seen a few who kind of
just got a little something about them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little edge to him. We saw him stare down the 7-footer at Cheshire, and all that type of stuff. So that's a kind of a nice thing. But players can get down. Players can be like, not playing. And that does happen, particularly in finals when you're wound up for it. And he wasn't that, which was impressive. But even then, the game was being won on the other end. The game was being won with whether Manchester could score sufficiently to get themselves back in the game. And
because I didn't say it on commentary, but it was one of those things I thought, looking at the fourth quarter, Manchester were going to need to score high 20s just to have a chance. They were going to have to get 27, 28 points just to have a chance. And the game did not look like Manchester could score 28 points. And it's one of those things is you can sometimes get lost in the score and think it's only this many points or that many points that you're behind, or even if it's 7 or 8. But I always think, well, what do they need to win? What is the other team going to get as a minimum in this quarter? So therefore you add, and then can they get whatever that number is? And going into the fourth quarter, that number was 27, 28 points, and it was nothing in the previous 3 quarters suggested they were going to get that in the fourth quarter.
No, and Will Saunders was in the dressing room.
Yeah, at that point, because he got called for a foul, and then he got a technical, and of course he'd got the unsportsman. It was his 4th foul, but he got the unsportsmanlike in the first half. So
without his offense off the bench, they got a little bit from Jordan Whelan in the second half. Not much from Josh Steele until too late. and Leicester held Dan Clark to 8 points. Dan Clark couldn't score inside, and Dan Clark, he can shoot threes, but most of the time, when he's being really effective, he's got 2 or 3 layups as well, and he's getting to the foul line a little bit and that type of thing, and he suddenly ends up with 18 points, and you don't know anything about it, and that didn't happen. I wasn't impressed. I wasn't overly impressed with the refereeing, I'm afraid. Certainly not the first half. I thought the second half it got better. I thought the unsportsmanlike foul on Saunders was horrible. I thought it was a horrible goal. You can say harsh because you're a commentator. I say horrible because I'm an ex-coach. I just thought, if a guy's on the halfway line trying to take a charge and reaches down for the ball and there's a man behind him on the foul line, it wasn't even, for me, it wasn't even a transition situation. It was a one-on-one at worst. And I just don't see how one ref called it as a normal foul, another one called it as unsportsmanlike. And my impression was that the unsportsmanlike ref called it because he didn't realize there was a guy behind him. That was my initial thought. But they talked about it and they came to a call, which I thought was wrong. I thought the second foul on Armstrong actually was a really bad call, which was when Washington stood and took the charge on the transition.
That was 2 feet in front of me. I thought that was a charge.
Well, no, the rule is on transition, you got to give someone space to land. Didn't give him space to land.
I thought he spun into him.
No, you watch your video, he catches the basketball, he literally lands on Connor's foot. He catches it on the jump, lands on his foot. So I didn't think that was a good call. I didn't think they missed the goaltend for Leicester, obviously, which you guys saw with the net. They actually missed one at the other end where Loving took the basketball. It didn't look like that on your screen, but actually the ball hit the backboard and then was tipped off by a Loving. That should have been a goaltend as well.
To me, that one looked like it hit the ring, but he might have got there. But there was also
whether a chance of going in or not, I don't know. But even so, and I just thought
one our director spotted where.
He was on the line.
Artisan, and it was way over the line as well. It was one
I
of
saw
those,
that when it happened.
I didn't see it in real time, but
I had my glasses.
And they came down and hit a 3 on that as well. And to be honest with you, even the 3, I thought he towed the line because again, that was in front of us. But anyway,
so I didn't think there wasn't much that I don't think necessarily changed the course of the game.
No.
But those things you like them to be cleaner. I didn't like the unsportsmanlike call. I think if you're going to make an unsportsmanlike call in the cup final, you got to be it's got to be nailed on. I don't think that was. That said, Saunders gets a ridiculous technical. You can't get that technical. No. And that's that mental disintegration I was talking about in relation. He hasn't got in the game. He hasn't made his shot. He's frustrated. He's trying to make an effort play on an offensive rebound. He says something to the referee, which he disagrees for whatever reason, but it was clearly a foul. And no doubt he's forgotten that he's got the unsportsmanlike, which means he's out of the game. And that's a big impact for Manchester because he's kind of the Charles guy on that team who could down the stretch hit 3 or 4 threes and bring them back. And when he's in the locker room, he's not going to do that. But Leicester managed the game well down the towards the end of the game. As I say, I think if Armstrong has this game back, he will wish he'd looked for his shot more. I think he shot 10 shots in this game, something like that. Crandall shot 21 and 5 and 10 foul shots. And there's an argument that Armstrong's offense is actually more important to his team than Crandall's offense, shooting wise, certainly. Maybe not with level of hands. So for Armstrong to, and that's the difference between the guy who's a first year out, and the guy who's second year in the league and has been around a bit and he's got a little bit of swagger about him and knows that, the game's going to go as he dictates it. And you need those guys to win. That's Trey Moore. Going back. That's true. You need those guys who are going to say, look at me. I don't, you can do the gladiator stuff. That's fine. Yeah. That's great. That's basketball. That's been done for years, in this league, and it's been done, and it's generally been done by players who've been successful and who've known that they're good and have been quite happy to tell the world that they're good. Charles has done it before, and Drew Sullivan, not so much. Drew was more about what he did, but even Fletch has made a couple of, every so often when he's done his final, he's kind of done all that stuff. So that's fine, but you need that. you don't need help to lose. You need help. That's a Flanoism. Sorry, I don't need help to lose. I need, I need help to, and therefore you bring a guy in. You have this player who is gifted basketball player, both with his dexterity and both with his knowledge and kind of feel for the game. And then you give him the ball and you let him go. And that is smart. That is, and you don't get in his way. And you every so often you have to pull him back. Not to the degree we have to pull Trey back, but yeah, every so often you have to pull him back. Every so often you have to just pull him back and just tug him up, just tug him back in, and then let him loose again. It's like flying a kite. You pull it back and you let him loose again. And that's kind of the maturity level of the coach of the organization, and having been in all those games and not being upset at the fact that Gino's shooting 21 shots and 11 foul shots, and because he has that presence and that character whereby you can trust him with it. And that's the big thing. And and the times when you can't trust him, without the times when he gets a little bit excitable or a little bit too volatile with the refs, you just pull him back, and he's smart enough not to take it personally, to log in, to figure it out. And you look at it's the history within these games. I was thinking about it going back, when I was watching this game. Look at the guys who come out of big college programs and how they play in big games. And I'm thinking, Gino obviously played at Gonzaga when they were the #1 team. Mark Loving in this game started off as if it was just a walk in the proverbial park. He's an Ohio State player. My personal knowledge is of Scott Martin, who was at Notre Dame. Who again, just turn up. It's just another day. He's played in front of 55,000 people in the Carrier Dome at Syracuse. The Birmingham Arena with all them school kids is not a big thing. And then you look at the Worcester guy years ago, Amir Williams, who came, I think, also from Ohio State or somewhere like that. And he was 26 and 11 in that game. And he was the best player in that game. And and some of the Americans, but more so the Brits really haven't experienced that. It's a whole new thing for them. So someone like Josh Steele or Jordan Whelan, even Will Saunders to a degree, because he only ever played in the COVID final, right? In college, they're playing in kind of the same gyms that they're playing in the BBL. But Gino Crandall at Gonzaga, with the pressure that brings, Scott Martin, Notre Dame, Amir Williams, Mark Loving. If you can get a guy from one of those programs who is connected to you, then the advantage of the experience that gives you when they're here for the first or the second time is amazing. Obviously, when they've been here for a long time, it doesn't really matter as much because they've seen it and they've got the built that experience. And I thought that's what happened in this game. Dan Clark has played in games like that, and I thought he was as effective as Leicester allowed him to be. I don't have any issue with the way that Dan Clark played today. I thought, he rebounded the basketball, he made shots early, he tried to lead his team, but his team just wasn't quite ready to be led. And that's something they have to take away with them and see if they can get better at.
Fortunately, he didn't break Rowe's defensive rebounding record.
I say fortunately, I was thinking unfortunately. Because whilst he maintains a job with you guys, that means we're going to hear about that record every year. And once it's gone,
before the game, he went, everybody only comes for defensive rebounds. And I was thinking, what is he talking about? And then he pointed to the record, and I was like, oh, okay.
I was slightly disappointed. You didn't mention Alaska after the women's game, or during the women's around the women's game, the possibility of a 54-point defeat.
Well, I did ask who remembered in the final, who remembered the biggest. He didn't really want to answer that one.
No, he never does. I mentioned to him a couple of times myself, but I think for the avoidance of doubt, the record was 101-49. And it was against Mersey Tigers.
I think it was 103-49, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, 54. And I do actually apologise to Gary Stronach for mentioning that, because Gary's a coach. Obviously, I'm quite happy to tell Drew about it all the time, but Gary, I feel a bit hard done to.
So Gino, a no-brainer MVP of the final. Kimball Mackenzie, 14 points in the fourth quarter, just kept them away.
He knocked some foul shots down at the end to kind of up those numbers. But even so, he made 2 big shots, and they were open shots, but
you still got to make them in the final.
But you got to make them in the final. You got to make them in the fourth quarter when you're cold. So that's kind of the real power that Leicester have. They can bring in Washington for defense in the second quarter and win that quarter 30-8. And Connor really didn't play much after that at all. And then you can bring Mackenzie in, and he can give you secondary ball handling and scoring in rhythm in the fourth quarter when he's hardly played as well. So, I've talked a little bit previously about, the Washington Mackenzie thing, and they're playing for the same minutes. Well, actually, in this game, it worked relatively well for them.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
Because what Rob was able to do, but this is a good thing, you see, you don't cut, and this is something, which I think is really important to probably leave on. You don't coach in finals on the basis of expected rotations. You can't.
No.
Right? So, when Connor Washington comes in with 2 minutes to go in the first quarter, there's no way that Rob is expecting him to play the whole second quarter. He's got all these other guys on the bench, right?
Yeah.
But the game is flowing in their direction. This is what I mean about stamping on somebody's neck when you've got the advantage.
Yeah.
That's probably a bad euphemism because it's very vaguely criminal act. But you're putting your foot on someone's on neck and not letting them out. And Connor kept playing. And why would you take him out? The only reason you would take him out would be because, it's his turn now. That doesn't apply in finals.
No.
Rob's been in enough finals to know that doesn't apply in finals.
He's been
keep rolling with what works.
Yeah, he's been in 15 finals. I think he was 4 and 5 in the first 9. He is now 10.
We were very good then, though.
Yeah, you were. He's now 10 and 5. He's won 6 in a row.
He outlasted us. He outlasted us. And I mean, in fact, probably if you ask Rob, I think probably his worst defeats would probably, in his own mind, would probably actually not be in finals. It would probably be in semi-finals and Achara-led quarterfinals. And things like that.
But
because
the interesting thing about it is, if you look at the 6 finals that Leicester have won in the last 6 finals that they've made, only one of them was by single figures.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The rest were, and actually most of them were by 20 plus. You think the City Royals final, the Newcastle final, the Lions final in the playoffs. And in the playoffs, you're obviously playing the best team. It's not like you can fluke somebody through and they, and
you are, but generally you know who the best team is before you get to a
playoff.
I remember the year that they beat us, we scraped in. It was starting over, having lost it.
But I would say, I think a lot of people thought both the London teams were going to win. Definitely City Royals. Definitely City Royals.
I didn't. I didn't think they were close because it's kind of it's a little bit unfair, because I say unfair. It's not. That's the wrong word. But it's so hard for the newer coaches. You can't build in the experience that Leicester had. Just like when Leicester were up and coming, they couldn't build in the experience that Fab had gained in 2007 and 2006, 2008 and 2009. They had to get it for themselves. They had to take their lumps. And now suddenly they ascend to having the coach who's been there for 15 years, who knows everything there is to know about a final. Everything, who is now happy with the team that he's got. And a lot of it, we never forget recruitment. Recruitment in the summer is critical. So this year, they did a great job recruiting, with, adding Mackenzie at the end but they've obviously managed to keep Walker and Nelson Henry for 3 years, and they've got something out of Walker now, which has kind of paid back the government investment in him. And, and that's worked as well. So they've done a fantastic job recruiting their team. And then it's a question of utilising them to their best ability. And when you get to the finals games, when you've been in so many of them, you're still nervous, you're still tense. But once the games start, I always found that there was a sense of calm. The players are there. You've done all you can to get them ready the best way you can. And once you've been in a lot of them, there's no different, it's a bank that you can go back into your head and you can rely on. And what that bank does, it might not make any better, probably doesn't, in decisions that you make in the game. but it gives you a demeanor and a confidence about decisions that you're making in a game, which then can carry over to your players. And it also gives you the advantages that you know what you're looking for in relation to your players as to who is locked in. And to be fair, Rob won locked ins 2-1 because he had 2 locked ins in his post-game interview, and Lloyd only had 1 locked in his pre.
There you go. Yeah.
But you know, you're looking, and that's an important victory. I'll give him a little medal. But you're looking from that beginning, and Drew talked about it on the commentary. You're looking to see, you know, who's ready, who's there, who am I comfortable with, and you're desperately trying to find a unit and trying to ride them as long as you can to maintain that competitive level in the game. And I think that dynamic is different to every other game. And you know, and when people talk about it just being another game, or we're just going to prepare the same way, as players, that's probably the message you've got to get to your players, because you want them consistent and you want them level. But as a coach, it's totally different, because because the atmosphere and the environment can play havoc with your players' mentalities and their rationality and their decision making, and you have to understand very, very quickly which ones are there and which ones aren't doing what you want. Because if you ride the wrong guys, you keep playing the wrong guys on the basis that they're going to turn it around or that they're not making shots, it's a real balance. It's a really hard job. But if you do it for too long, then you miss your opportunity. And Manchester missed their opportunity today. They couldn't have got off to a better start. They were 18-9. If they'd finished that first quarter, and they were up 5 at the end of the first quarter, I know 2015, but if they had 27 points at the end of that first quarter, this is a totally different game. But because Leicester held them to 2 points the last 4 minutes, that was the whole dynamic of the game just absolutely changed, and it carried on to the second quarter. And by the time Manchester realised they're down 17, Nelson Henry's making a shot on the buzzer just to rub it in. Leicester are going in there absolutely cock a hoop, and Manchester are thinking, what just happened? What just happened?
Exactly.
And that's, you know, that's it. 5 minutes. It's irrecoverable in a game like that. Sorry, and
right. No, so on the basis that I'm normally uploading, it's gone 10 o'clock. I'm normally uploading at this time on a Sunday night, and we haven't even. Well,
Leicester fans have a drink on me. Yeah.
Well, I think they already did. Is fair to say. So congratulations to Leicester, first trophy of the season, heading back to the Morningside Arena. But we will leave it now for this Sunday night. We'll be back in league play next weekend, and Dave and I will be back on Sunday night once again to break it all down. But have a great week. We'll see you soon. Goodbye.